Good afternoon and welcome to the New Hampshire Insurance Department's monthly webinar. This month we will be discussing commercial cyber insurance coverage. Just a couple of housekeeping items before we get started. We're happy to entertain questions. As always, please enter them into the chat box and our subject matter experts will address them at the end of the presentation. I'm happy now to introduce our commissioner, DJ Betancourt.
Well, thank you, Andrew, and good afternoon, everyone. We appreciate you joining us for today's webinar, which focuses on understanding commercial cyber liability coverage. On behalf of the New Hampshire Insurance Department, I want to again extend a warm welcome to all of you, business owners, risk managers, producers, and industry partners who have taken time out of your busy day to join us. In today's economy, we know that no business, whether large or small, is immune to cyber risk. Whether it's a ransomware attack, a data breach, or simple human error, these incidents can cause serious operational, financial, and reputational harm. Yet even as these threats grow more sophisticated, many organizations still find the landscape of cyber insurance coverage incredibly complex and difficult to navigate. And so that's why we're hosting today's session and why we think this topic is so important. Our goal today, as it is in all of our webinars, is simple, and that is to provide clarity to help you better understand what commercial cyber liability policies typically include, how to evaluate limits and exclusions, and what the underwriting and incident response expectations look like. It is, again, part of our broader mission to ensure that Granite Staters and our business community have the information and the tools that they need to manage risk responsibly, make informed decisions, and strengthen their overall resiliency. I suspect we'll talk a lot about what I have called cyber hygiene and how best to do that. As always, I want to thank the subject matter experts here at the department and our communications and outreach teams for putting today's presentation together. I hope and encourage everyone to take full advantage of the opportunity to ask questions. You can ask your question right in the chat feature that is part of today's presentation, and one of our subject matter experts will answer them. So with that said, let's get it started, and I'll turn it over to James to get us started.
Thank you, Commissioner. My name is James Fox. I'm the P&C Director here at the Insurance Department. I'm going to start out a little different today than I usually do in these things. We had a guest speaker here, I think it was yesterday, from the University of Georgia, who was saying how many people don't know how to read an insurance policy. So I thought it would be good to start with how to read an insurance policy, which I think is kind of important since ultimately we're talking about an insurance policy and its application in the real world. The insurance policy I looked at yesterday was the ISO commercial cyber insurance policy, which is a standalone policy. But in the P&C world, I don't speak for the L&H world, but in the P&C world, all insurance policies are designed the same. You'll get a trigger, usually called the insuring agreement, and that will tell you everything that the policy is going to provide you. Like the broadest scope of coverage you could possibly get is going to be in your insuring agreement. And after you read your insuring agreement, then your definition. So there'll be words in the insuring agreement that have definitions. You should go to the definition section and read the definitions so you understand what they mean, because they don't always mean what you'd think they mean into like a lay sense. It's like they're specific contracts, and you can either say they'll either be bold or they'll be in quotes. So that's very important. And everything else in the contract is either an exclusion or an obligation of yours to do, or something that the insurance company, for example, subrogation, is saying they're going to do to the extent they pay out for you. If you're a consumer and you don't know what subrogation is, basically in a property case, if the insurance company pays you for a claim, then they have a right to basically stand in your shoes and go after who they think might be liable for that. So that's how you should read an insurance policy. And if you haven't read an insurance policy, I suggest you do. They're kind of important to understand. And if you don't understand the policy, I would say the best person to go speak to is your insurance agent. Your insurance agents know policies inside and out. They sell them all the time. They sell all the different types of coverages. And I would say it's always a great idea to go to talk to your agent and explain in lay terms what you're concerned about with your particular business, and then they can suggest what types of policies you should have. So that's a good exercise to do if you haven't done that in a while. This type of insurance that we're talking about, which is commercial cyber insurance. The who is, I was talking to with, our supervisor of forms, Luann, who's on with us, and we kind of were in agreement that if you have a business and you're involved with the internet in particular, whether it's internet sales or even emails, if you're not some person from like the 1970s who's using a typewriter and has ads in the paper, then you really should consider purchasing commercial cyber insurance, which is basically helps you with insurance, cyber attacks. This kind of became a hot topic at the insurance department. I was trying to figure exactly when, but it feels like it was about 8 years ago or 9 years ago, because although commercial cyber insurance has been around a while, it has become much more ubiquitous or popular in the sense that it used, the standalone policies, but then it's also much like if you ever see roadside assistance tends to be attached to a lot of different things. And for a while at the department, we were seeing commercial cyber insurance attached to a lot of different commercial policies. And we had some people who were concerned that it really shouldn't be in there because it, based on TOIs, or the type of insurance. Those were a different group of forms examiners back when we had desk drawer rules, and we were much more rigid about what would go where. Probably, I would say in the last at least 5 years, and definitely since Commissioner Betancourt, we're trying to be as innovative as possible. So that wouldn't even be really been a discussion now, but it was a discussion back then, and we spent a lot of time trying to see where commercial cyber insurance fits in the commercial TOIs. As a general, I'm sorry, AJ, so we go to the first slide? All right. So this is, it kind of speaks for itself. I said cyber attack is the word here. It's cyber attack is the concern. In terms of the policies themselves, they're generally claims made policies, which I always say is a loose thing. Is claims made, claims reported. You have a shorter window than the old occurrence policies. So anybody doesn't know insurance out there. So the old days, like your auto policy, it's like an occurrence policy. So you had basically if the claim occurred during the policy period, and in the liability in particular, and you could somebody could still make a claim against you. You could still like call it long tail. You could still seek coverage under your insurance policy. With claims made, it's a shorter window. The insurance companies want to be able to handle their financial position in terms of insurance policies, so they want to keep the tail shorter. So this is a claims made policy. Most commercial policies are claims made policies now. The one I looked at is also defense within limits, which means that you'll have a limit of liability, that you'll have, say, $1 million, and then you're going to have to, the amount you pay for defense costs is going to come out of that $1 million. Other than so that's that. And then generally, this is a kind of a fun, I think, for insurance people at least, it's a fun kind of policy, because it, you usually, if you think about it, it's like an AB policy. I always call it. It's like, so you have the first party coverage. So I think let's go to the next slide, AJ. So you have the first party coverage. Oh, yeah, actually, let's step back a second. So policies vary in coverages they provide. So, okay, so certain policies, like if you have an auto policy and a homeowner's policy, they don't vary very much. And the reason, well, why don't they vary very much? That's generally because they're highly regulated as a department, both auto and homeowners. Homeowners has a fire insurance policy that every policy must comply with that, basically that form. You can't go below that form. So they're pretty standardized. And auto, they have, although it's in the Department of Safety's laws, they're kind of like, this is how there's a specific way those policies need to be designed. And between the statutory scheme and the regulations under that, they're all very similar. But in this world, these are not. So like when we look at one of these policies, it tends to be more is it, if we're going to say no to it, the question becomes whether it's against public interest. So if it said that it provides a certain type of coverage, and when you read it, it ultimately doesn't, then that would be a problem. So when I said the insuring agreement, that has to stand up to a certain extent, even when the exclusions are applied. That basic insuring agreement needs to still be there. Otherwise, we'd say no to it. But these can vary. So I'm talking in generalities about the ISO type policy, but they're not all like that. But now going back, I said this is kind of in my head like an A-B policy. So the A is your first party coverage. So that's your property coverage. And so let's say you have a cyber attack, you're going to have a property impact. And then, we're going to go through all the different types that are going to happen, possibly. But then you also might have a liability situation where, let's say, you're holding information that it actually involves somebody else. For example, insurance companies hold a lot of private identifiable information about their insured. So let's say, I won't name a particular company. Let's say one of the insurance companies gets attacked, and they have a first party problem, and then the attacker takes information from that, which impacts the public. Then that would be the liability. Then that insurance company would then be potentially liable. So that's the first and the third party coverage. So this says and then what? So then let's say you're in a first party context. Generally, what are you going to get? Losses to the business itself. So you have to work on your computer systems to get them back up and running because they've been attacked. So that's what that. So let's go to the next slide, AJ. And this gives the basic types of things, which is pretty self-explanatory. But data recovery, because your data's been lost, business interruption, cyber extortion, which is that one is kind of interesting because that gives you everything from if you have to take a loan out to pay for a claim that'll pay interest, give you money for interest on the loan. If you end up paying rewards, then it gives you money for rewards, and also gives you money for direct payments for the actual ransom. Now, in that context, and in some of these contexts, when I said you should read your policy, is that, remember we said we had the insuring agreement. So think of this as the insuring agreement. And then after you read the insurance agreement, you're like, oh, this is great. I have X amount of dollars for cyber extortion. But then when you read on past that, this commercial policies, which a lot of commercial policies do, and some private personal lines policies also, but in commercial definitely, they have sublimits. So you would get less money for particular things for various reasons. So, but cyber extortion is a pretty serious attack, because that's basically what they'll do is they'll come in and they will lock down your computer system. And then if you want to get back in your computer system, you need to pay them. And that can be pretty difficult to undo the ransomware to get back into your system. So there's a potential that money will have to be paid out. And then there's crisis management, public relations. That's fairly explanatory. AJ, we'll go to the next slide. And forensic investigations, and then digital and hardware restoration. I mean, these things kind of seem self-explanatory, and I think that's kind of one of the great things about this policy. It is definitely a policy that is, I think, going to become more and more important because obviously AI in particular is a main driver of growth in the United States right now, stock market growth, and companies like Google and Elon Musk are putting the kind of a race to see who's going to be number one in AI. But as the computers become more advanced, if the people who are trying to protect themselves are going to have more and more aggressive attacks against them. So this insurance, I think, is going to become more and more important. That may ultimately mean the risk becomes higher and it becomes more and more expensive. But right now, I think everybody who's involved in the internet should have it. And then regulatory fines and penalties, which when I read that, that confused me a little bit, but coverage for fees, fines, and penalties that may be imposed as a result of a cyber incident, depending on the policy. So that one, I'm not exactly sure. That one I wasn't really sure about, but it's there. So I would say, as insurance coverages go, these policies are pretty extensive, and the types of coverages they're going to give you, like the sub coverages, and they are, when you read them, it does make sense, and it's good to have that level of detail, so there's no argument over how a loss fits. You can pretty much take your fact pattern of your loss and then plug it into the actual different subcategories, and you should be pretty confident of what you're going to be covered for and what you wouldn't be covered for. So AJ, go to the next slide. AJ, next slide. And this goes back to who needs commercial cyber insurance. As we said, I would say if you're involved with the internet, you need it, but that we put some more any business that collects, stores, or transmits the sensitive data, such as a customer credit card information or personal details. Absolutely. Business that rely heavily on technology and networks. Absolutely. Organizations of all sizes, from small businesses to larger corporations and nonprofits. This may be kind of on a spectrum of, who needs it. Maybe these particular entities might need a little bit more. But whether you're a large company or a smaller company, sorry, somebody was commenting. It is important for small businesses even to make sure that their information is protected. Again, as I said, especially since we're becoming more and more of an internet-driven and streaming society. Okay, and next slide, AJ. How does a business obtain cyber insurance? Well, as I said, the number one way I would say you can obtain cyber insurance is if you go to your agent. And I think if you're a business and you're at the level of purchasing cyber insurance, that you probably would want to have an agent to make sure that you're covered for all the different risks that you might have. There's really always two ways to do insurance. You can purchase it yourself directly, or you can do it through an agent. I think in the business context, it really should be through an agent, because it gets a little too complicated for most people to understand. But here it says it can often be purchased. This is this policy. Yeah, the policy can be an add-on, which would be an endorsement to a general liability, professional liability, or business owner's policy, BOP. So kind of all the different types of liability policies. Again, we did see, probably in my mind, around 8 or 10 years ago, where this became kind of everywhere. And then the other type is to get a standalone cyber liability policy. That's the type I looked at yesterday to get ready for this. And then, if you want to define a suitable policy, you 100% want to talk, in my opinion, to an agent to see exactly what you can, see what your cyber needs are, but B, can also review all of your different types of coverages. So that's pretty much it. I mean, yeah, we didn't quite focus on the liability as much, but liability is going to protect you from valid claims by people who are going to claim that you were negligent in handling their information, and then that's going to result in a claim that would be, depending upon the breach, could, people's whole lives tend to be now on this information, like social security numbers and bank account numbers and passwords. So as that information gets out into the more, either you call it the dark web or the public domain, obviously the company can be open to many claims. So this is, again, a reason why, especially if you're handling other people's sensitive information, so it's just not your first party issue where you have to deal with what happened to you. Now you have to deal with what happened to you and what happened with all of the other people whose information may have been improperly obtained. This is a hugely important type of insurance. As you know, I said that it isn't as high, it isn't highly regulated in the sense of like an auto policy or homeowners policy, but I would say that in the world of insurance policies, that the cyber insurance policy is really well drafted policies. Now they can vary, but generally they're well drafted policies. They do provide a great deal of protection that didn't used to exist for businesses, and I think it would be very you'd have to have a large appetite for risk in today's society to be running a business, especially if you're handling sensitive information and not think about or actually get a cyber insurance policy to protect yourself. And I think that's probably to the consumers out there who we're most worried about. The message is that if you haven't obtained a cyber insurance policy already, that you really should think about it and talk to your insurance agent. And I guess we're jumping ahead. So if anybody has any questions, I'm happy to answer questions. And also, and Luann's here, who's our forms expert, who knows more about the forms, and also our attorney, Emily, is with us also. And we'll be happy to answer any questions. But
I do see one question in the comments. It looks like perhaps when we were talking about third-party coverage, we might have skipped that slide.
that may be why it looked a little short. Yeah. Yeah. So yeah, that which is it's what people think it is. Third-party cyber insurance coverage, legal liability costs if data is breached, causes the client, customer, or vendor to sue your business, and includes protection for regulatory fines and penalties. And that's all. Those are really all the entities that would say that you haven't, you fell below the. Now, in a regulatory thing, it might be an actual violation of a federal regulation more than anything else, most likely. But or if it's a person, it maybe also could be a tort, which is you fell below the reasonable person standard. A lot of times, the statutes and regs are written to a reasonable person standard anyway. Yeah, personal information was compromised due to your negligence. That's the tort. And often it's a component of a comprehensive cyber liability policy, which may also include first-party coverages. I think if you're gonna buy this type of policy, unless you literally don't have any third-party information, you naturally just want to get the policy that has the first-party coverage and a third-party coverage. I think if your exposure on third-party is almost non-existent, then it would just be rated lower, it'd be less expensive for you. But again, I would just say the most important thing is that this is a coverage of the future. This is gonna be more and more important. I would say also from a regulatory perspective that to the extent that there are more losses and we see how it plays out, that there may eventually be more highly regulated, not just on our. So, and when I say highly regulated, we have a general standard, like it's got to be consistent with public interest. But if there's specific problems that occur, then we might take either seek legislation or seek rulemaking to make sure that certain coverages are there at a certain level. But right now, I would say, I sit on all the consumer meetings. So we meet twice a week with the consumer to see what's coming through consumer, and we never get cyber insurance coverage problems. So I think that the system most likely is operating as well as can be hoped to operate. So with that, my guess is I'm going to throw it back to the commissioner.
Oh, Commissioner, you're muted.
You'd think by now I'd have that down. Anyway, thank you, James. And again, I want to thank everybody for joining us today. As with all of our webinars, a recording of today's presentation will be on our social media platforms for people to check out at a later time. But again, really want to thank everyone for taking the time to engage with us on, I think as James has done a good job throughout the presentation today, emphasizing, engaging with us on such an important and fast-moving issue. I don't want to be redundant, but I do want to continue to stress that there are few threats to the business community that are growing as rapidly and evolving as unpredictably as we are seeing with cyber attacks. What's ransomware one week becomes a phishing scheme the next, to social engineering or a patch exploitation scheme the next. And for many businesses, I think, as we've described, cyber insurance has really become a critical safety net that is providing a layer of financial protection against what is an invisible enemy, oftentimes coming from foreign countries, that can cause real damage on a number of different levels for members of our business community. And as that technology advances and as the schemes continue to get more complex and grow, obviously the risks that are associated with that are also going to grow. And one statistic that I found that kind of gives you a sense as to something encouraging, which is, I think, that people are really beginning to take this more seriously, is in recent years we've seen tremendous growth in the cyber insurance market. According to our friends at the National Association of Insurance Commissioners, U.S. insurers wrote more than $4 billion in cyber premiums in 2020. That has continued to grow, and current estimates suggest that that figure could top $20 billion by the end of this year. And we'll obviously keep you updated on those statistics. And again, that's encouraging because it reflects that the business community is taking the risk seriously and is taking the steps necessary to ensure that they are protected. A few years ago, we saw some real headwinds that were facing the cyber insurance market that were causing the coverage to be very, very expensive. We were seeing increased claims frequency and the severity, the geopolitical instability, again, the rising sophistication of these attacks. We were seeing that lead to higher premiums. There was shrinking capacity, tighter underwriting standards. A lot of that has gotten better over the course of the past several years. And so the coverage is now back to a place where it is within reach. It is affordable for many businesses. And again, we really do encourage you to take this protection very, very seriously. As we look to the future, it's going to require some shared responsibility. Businesses are going to have to make the investment in cybersecurity fundamentals. That includes things like regular training, multi-factor authentication, strong incident response planning, all of those types of things, while at the same time, insurers are going to need to continue to do the hard work and the good work up to this point of refining their models, pricing the coverage accurately, maintaining capacity. So again, this coverage remains available and affordable to our business community that really does need it. So again, I want to thank you all for being here and for your continued commitment to strengthening New Hampshire's cybersecurity ecosystem.